event on YouTube. So if I have anything inappropriate on my browser tabs, I guess now's the time for me to get rid of those. Just a joke. All right, there we go. Okay, well, hey everybody, thanks for showing up. I really appreciate having you all here. And what I wanted to start off with real briefly before we dive into the guts of this meeting I laid out is if we could do a quick series of introductions, that'd be great. Anyone who doesn't have a microphone, you can just type it in and I'll read it out. And I guess I'll start introducing myself. So hi everyone, I'm Aaron Stannard, and I'm one of the founders of the Akka.net project, and I'm also essentially right now the technical lead for Akka.remote and Akka.cluster. So I do a lot of the distributed system stuff in Akka.net. I'm hoping through these meetings and through all the other work we're going to do together to change that. So we have a much larger team of people who are all working on those areas of the system. I got to Akka.net by virtue of my previous tech company that I did before I started Petabridge with Andrew. What I did there is I founded a company called Marked Up Analytics. We were a real-time in-app marketing and analytics product, and we were doing something like at our peak about 100 million database transactions a day. We had about 500 megs of event data per second coming through our load balancer during peak hours, and I needed to build a system that could react to different apps. The developers who are our customers needed to be able to specify campaigns for sending people offers or trying to lure them back into the application if they stopped using it. And eventually Akka.net was the way we decided to go about doing that. So we started working on porting Akka to .net by ourselves, and then we noticed that Roger, who had his own, Roger Alsing, the other founder, had already done a lot of work and had implemented a bunch of stuff I didn't. Plus, his performance benchmarks were about 5 times better than mine. So I went ahead and ditched my stuff, but I kept the networking stack, which is Helios. I kept that and teamed up with him starting in about February of last year to build Akka.remote and some other core parts of Akka itself. And since then, I shut that Marked Up company down, and I've been working with Petabridge and Akka.net, sort of my full-time job since about January. So that's me, and we'll hand it over to someone else. Let's see, I'll just go ahead and pick a name here. Adrian, would you mind going?
Hi guys, I'm Adrian. I'm also a technical team lead in my company, in my division, sort of speaking. I'm mostly interested in .NET technologies. I found Akka.NET at version 00 something, play a little bit with it, and I'm interested in apply it in like a microservices architecture to see how it's going on over there. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian. And Christian?
You're welcome.
Yeah, hi, my name is Christian. I'm working as a .NET developer for a gaming company. We're currently using some other messaging architecture than Akka.net, but for the past few years I've been quite interested in messaging and distributed systems and stumbled upon Akka.net I think it was maybe a year ago or something. And I have been interested for a while in trying to contribute to it, so yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to make that happen. David, do you have a microphone? Oh, looks like he disconnected. So I'll take that as a tentative maybe. We'll go next down the chain. We've got another David on deck. So that'd be David Zucker.
Yes. So me, I'm working for .NET for the past 10 years, something like that. I'm working in financial industry where we build a heavy messaging risk system. That means one of the stats we have, it was like we were handling like around 500 servers and around like 10,000 workers, and all of that using messaging. It was quite the hell for all the retry and everything. You know, failure, not health of the server, behavior, a lot of the things that you would hope to find in one framework which didn't exist. So we build all of these things ourselves. It worked quite well, but I feel like Akka.NET is quite a step forward. I'm looking forward to help to contribute.
Okay, got it. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, David Horster, you're back. Is your microphone working? All right. If it's not, you can introduce yourself in chat, and I'll read it out to the group. In the meantime, Filippo, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'm Italian, but work here in Ireland for gambling companies, and we're not yet using that, but we have already in place a stack in Scala Akka, so we are very interested in using this for a small team in .NET that works for trading and for real-time business-to-business services.
Got it.
I would use this to learn it a bit more about Akka.NET.
Yeah, one of the things that everyone's gonna get if they do, the work of actually being a contributor on this project is you're gonna understand not just like you're gonna understand Akka.NET really, really well, but you're also gonna understand all the fundamentals behind it too. We'll share some of that. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Graham, would you mind sharing? Can't hear you at the moment, Graham. Well, that's all right. We'll circle back to you if your mic works. Nathan, is your microphone working? I know Jared told me that his is off.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine, Nathan. You're coming in really well, actually.
Great. So I'm Nathan, and I work right now at Microsoft on the Azure team, doing specifically within the machine learning department. And I actually don't have a huge .NET background. Part of the reason why I found Akka was that I was wanting to learn .NET, and I saw a post I think that you made, Aaron, about people doing .NET not doing cool projects.
Yeah, I've kind of set the internet on fire with that post.
And I thought, well, if I'm gonna learn .NET, I want to do it on a cool project, and so yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, welcome to the fold. This definitely, I think, qualifies as a cool project based on just the sorts of topics that it touches. Yeah, we can talk about that post at some other time. But by actually doing the work on Akka Cluster, you're going to be changing the thing I was complaining about in that post, which is that a lot of the open source work that happens in .NET is largely bike shedding. In case you're not sure what that word means, bike shedding refers to there was a very specific planning commission for setting up a nuclear power plant back in the United States in the 60s or 50s, I can't remember exactly. And one of the scientists on the sort of safety commission noticed that all the safety commissioners were arguing about what materials to build the bike shed out of, instead of actually talking about like how to make a nuclear reactor safe, which is, so the idea of bike shedding is people work on things that are simple to understand and not necessarily like the critical path problems. So that's why in the open source community in .NET we have like 36 dependency injection frameworks and no socket libraries. So that's part of what we were that's sort of what we were addressing there. Now we actually do have a couple socket libraries now. That's actually changed in the time since that post was written, but it's so the state of the economy in .NET is improving a little bit. Let's see, Suhas, would you mind sharing?
Yep. Hello everyone. I'm Suhas. I'm working in London at the moment. I'm technical architect with Accenture. Bit of a story there, but I'll come back to that later. I've been working on .NET for last close to 10, 11 years now. I'm generally excited about actor model. I have unsuccessfully tried to learn Erlang and use it somewhere. I couldn't figure out where or how I can be expert at it. And I'm generally very excited to see what Akka.NET offers.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'll read Graham's note here. .NET Dev for about 10 years, the last 4 years as a contractor, currently works for McLaren Racing to improve their race side application. Okay, I think you win for the coolest application that any of us is working on. That's awesome. Okay, and then David, I noticed that David Horster, I noticed that you just joined. Is your microphone working?
I think it is.
Yep, you're coming in a little quiet. Can you boost your gain a little bit?
You know, I had some serious network
perfect.
problems.
That sounds good.
Oh, better?
Yep, it's a lot better.
All right. Well, hey, thanks. Yeah, my name's David Hurster. I'm a .NET MVP. Been working with Akka for about 4 months. I work here in Pittsburgh, PA, for a financial software product firm, and we're looking at we're using Akka right now on a sort of a beta product to do some serious processing of some large unstructured data sources. So it's a lot of fun. So
awesome.
I'm looking for clustering to really help out. Both, you know, just I'm interested in it a lot, but also just to help our product launch too. So if I can help the community, great.
Awesome. That's exactly the right sort of attitude to have. So with that being said, I think we've done all of our introductions. We have some other contributors who couldn't make it today because they're based out of Asian or Australian time zones. So I might be holding a separate meeting for those folks so they can get access to the same information that I'm going to share all of you today, but also the same opportunity to ask questions too. So I'm pulling up a little PowerPoint real quickly when we talk about the Akka.Cluster stuff itself. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today was basically essentially how, oh, here we go. I just got a little notice from Jared. I'm Jared Schaub. I currently work with Home Depot as a senior full-stack developer, primarily .NET and JavaScript, and a developer for 10 years in total. Home Depot, we're currently replatforming our current solution to utilize microservices, and Akka.NET came up as something we may use. So I'm interested in getting my hands dirty. Awesome. That sounds like a good use case. And we actually refer to Akka.NET's extensibility model in our documentation as the Home Depot model of extensibility. So that's very appropriate, where we talk about, you know, if you need this type of faucet or this type of faucet, we have both. You can go and use it. So it's very apt that you're working on this. So let's talk a little bit about contributing to Akka.NET, what that looks like, and how our organization functions today. So we've had something like 60 people have pull requests merged into Akka.NET so far. And we have a core team of about 5 or 6 people who are contributors who basically, if you become like a core contributor, that's more of a function of your time commitment and how much work you put in. It's not really, and that's all that it really means. And so we have a handful of core contributors who are the ones who usually do code reviews, and they merge in pull requests, and they also have the ability to go and do stuff like tinker with our build server and things like that. Otherwise, most of our contributions come from people who are like production users of Akka.NET who didn't have some feature that they wanted, or they found a bug when they were actually working on a production system and wanted to patch it. Or sometimes there was just some feature that's in the JVM version of Akka that they wanted to port because they needed it for some application. And so the way our project is structured right now is we generally set milestones for like, here's the target of this next big release, and we start bucketing issues into little milestones for working on that. And we have sort of a trajectory for like, here's what needs to be done to sort of to satisfy this milestone. And so the next milestone is shipping a stable version of Akka.Cluster. It's called milestone version 1.1. The last big milestone we had was 1.0, which came out towards the beginning of April of this year. And so the goal of that milestone was just to have a stable version of Akka Core with a bunch of important features intact. Like async await was one of the big features that took us a while to get right. And then we had Akka.Remote had to be stable for 1.0. And then we had a couple of other things that needed to be finished too, like an F# API was one of the ones that we needed to have sort of finalized. But between those major versions, we also support people just patching like issues that they found in a core library. So for instance, like we've had a bunch of issues with discriminated union serialization in F# has been a persistent pain that we've had to deal with. So we'll go and accept pull requests for stuff like that. We've done other little things where we've put missing features into Akka and Akka.Remote. And we also have stuff like alpha modules, like Akka.Persistence right now is one of our sort of alpha modules that's out where it's in a state where it's still pretty new, but we're accepting pull requests for things like adding little features there, fixing bugs, or expanding the test suite. And we've also had contributors writing their own Akka.Persistence plugins too. So the point of all that information is that our workflow, even though it does have a general direction in terms of the milestones, we're pretty open to contributors doing whatever they want. And when someone commits to working on an issue, when we start actually identifying bugs or features that are missing or anything like that, we'll usually go and assign that person as the owner for that issue. And occasionally, me or someone else will check in and just ask how things are going. One of the things that's really important to remember about an open source project is this is usually a labor of love or in volunteering for people. It's not a job. So if real life comes up and you aren't able to deliver on some issue that you did, that's okay. Like no one's going to be mad at you or anything like that. That's a normal, usual thing. I mean, in the case of Akka.net, Roger had a baby during the very beginning of it, so he was gone for 3 months. I shut down a business, so I was gone for like 3 or 4 months there. So we all have periods of time where our ability to participate in the project gets impeded by other things that happen in our life, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So don't be afraid to commit to something big. Like if you want to take on, changing the way our multi-node test runner, visualizes output, which is something that we're talking about right now, or anything like that, take that on. And if it turns out like, oh, my boss just gave me this big new assignment at work, and I've got to put all my time in that, or I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks with my family, like don't be afraid of taking on big issues because real life might come in the way. But that's the normal way things work in an open source project. So if you commit to something and can't do it, the best thing to do is just let someone know, hey, I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks. Here's where I left this. Go ahead and put like the work in your fork, and let someone else know. Let people know that you need some help, either having someone else finish it or work on it. That's totally cool. That's the way our project is always operated. We're pretty. I guess the right way to put it is we're pretty flexible on how work gets done in the course of Akka.net. We don't have some rigid way of assigning work and riding people's asses until they deliver stuff. That's not how we work at all, and that's not how we've ever worked, and that's not how we want to work ever. So we kind of like it to be, people work on things they're interested in doing, and if they're able to get stuff done and send in pull requests, that's awesome. We'll do everything we can to make sure that you get there. But if real life comes up, that's okay too. So that's the first and most important thing I just wanted to communicate is that real life does come up, and that is okay. Don't let that stop you from taking on ambitious parts of the project. The second thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is our culture and how we communicate. So I think a bunch of you are in our Giter chat room now, if I'm not mistaken. And if you aren't, let me go ahead and drop the link in. Let me drop the link in chat here real quick. So I'm just going to grab it. This is our Giter chat room. So this just uses your GitHub identity to participate in chat. So here you go. So this just uses your GitHub identity to participate in chat. This is where most of the contributors actually do their work, is in Giter. So when we talk about trying to troubleshoot problems with a particular module or trying to kick around some ideas on how to do something, the Giter chat room is the best place to do it. Like I had a really long conversation in there today with another contributor, John Bearsy, about how we can do like an Azure auto clustering setup using cloud services. and I'm having like a really hard time debugging a particular connectivity problem I'm having with it. And he's an experienced Azure user, so he's helping me through that. That's totally cool. I've seen some other open source projects where they get really strict about what are the sorts of things you can write in your Giter chat. They're like, oh, it always has to be about the open source or whatever. We handle like stuff that would normally be Stack Overflow questions in the Giter chat room all the time, and that's okay. Or people ask like, where can I find resources for X? Or are there any examples of someone doing this with Akka.net? The Giter chat's totally appropriate for that. So we sort of treat that as like a catch-all chat room for stuff that's related to Akka.net or other things that might be the Akka.net users might be interested in. So people will go and post stuff about like Windows Service Fabric occasionally in there, or I guess it's Azure Service Fabric is the name of it now. They'll go and post stuff about that in there, or they'll talk a little bit about some distributed programming stuff. That's cool. So you should feel pretty. You should feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about or ask about in the Akka.net chat room. It's pretty liberal in that respect. In terms of but we use the Giter for discussing a lot of stuff, and we use GitHub issues for that's where we put work items. So if you're not familiar with GitHub issues, it's basically just like a really flat sort of list of issues that are. And we go and label them with any number of different topics. So actually, you know what I might do here is share my screen and show you my Waffle here. Let's see, I'll just do screen number 2. All right. So go ahead and do our little Waffle. And then we go and move this over to the left here. Whoops, we sort of got the infinite screen thing going. All right, there we go. So I don't know how many of you have seen Waffle.io before, but it's basically a Kanban board for GitHub issues. And in my opinion, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to see how things are categorized. But you can also just use the good old GitHub issues interface yourself, too. So if I go to, I guess it's GitHub.net. Just go here and click on the Issues tab. All the stuff that's here, all these issues that are sort of listed in the order in which they're posted, these are the same issues here. They're just organized by their label into different columns. So I'll put a link to the Waffle in chat here too. We only just started using the Waffle pretty recently, and what we kind of use it for is categorizing different levels of problems. So this for next release bucket here, these are the issues that we're working on addressing as part of shipping Akka.Cluster. So this is for our 1.1 next major milestone release. And you can also see that they have a milestone number associated with them. So that's the set of issues here. So if you're interested in working on Akka.Cluster, issues that fall into this little bucket here are probably the ones you should look at first. We also have this like up for grabs here, which are a lot of the times these are issues that someone has requested help with, but they're not urgent or necessarily important. Like a lot of this stuff is where we have discussions about, what would be a better way of doing X, where it's not something that's like a mission critical bug. And so we'll go ahead and list that stuff as up for grabs sometimes. And up for grabs issues tend to be they either tend to be something like designing an entire plugin where it's kind of a big issue, or they're really, really small, like make it easy to change this logging setting or something like that. So these are pretty good places. So the up for grabs issues here are pretty good places to cut your teeth if you want to like just get familiar with the workflow and how we do stuff. The next set of bucket of issues that we have here, this help bucket. These are issues that are actually pretty important, like they're basically blocking us from fixing a bug, or or there's some erratic behavior going on, and we haven't been able to isolate the problem yet. So the issues in the help bucket are usually ones where it's like unidentified what the problem is, or maybe we don't know what's wrong there. We need other people to look at it. So think of it as like a code review where we're trying to figure out where something's wrong in the existing code that we already have. And then the in progress and needs review tabs. These are all pull requests that end up in the needs review bucket over here. So these are pull requests that other people have submitted. and usually we need someone to go and review them and offer some feedback on it before we decide to merge it into the code base. So right now it's only the core contributors, so the 5 or 6 of us who can merge in a pull request. We go and add new people to that roster pretty regularly. It really just depends on how available you are. So we really just bring in people who are able to actually go and do the reviews. They're the ones who usually get the keys to the car, so to speak. And we're pretty generous about handing that out. We are pretty. What's the right way to put this? We trust our contributors is the right way to put it. So we, if you go and start participating in code reviews and give good feedback and are pretty diligent about that, usually we'll go and give you the ability to merge and pull requests. And that's been really helpful for us because that eliminates Roger or myself or Bartosz or Stefan as bottlenecks on getting this stuff reviewed. So that's how that works. And that's sort of the gist of it from a workflow point of view. In terms of the way we actually work together as people, we're pretty professional for the most part. I'm probably the least professional out of the bunch. So so you all get so you all can just take your cues from the way people talk in Giter chat. Everyone tends to be pretty professional and objective, so no one's gonna feel. If you go and find a bunch of problems with a piece of code someone else wrote and say, hey, we could probably refactor it to do this or change it to do that, no one's going to feel any emotional attachment to the way that code was written in this project. They're going to be like, oh yeah, we can probably change that. So we've been operating that way for close to 2 years now. So I can say with full confidence that no one's gonna be how put it. Have you ever heard the expression "you are not your code"? That's generally true in the Akka.NET project. No one's emotionally attached to code they wrote 2 years ago. And in fact, most of the bugs you'll find if you're working on Akka Cluster will probably be ones I introduced. So, I'll personally guarantee I will not be upset when you do that. So that's it for the workflow. One other thing to take a look at. When you want to send in your first pull request, GitHub will let you know to review this, but we have this little contribution guidelines document down here. This explains what this is really about. The contribution guidelines is the GitHub workflow that we use for merging in pull requests. So it explains how to do things like how to rewind your changes on top of the latest from dev. It also explains how to do stuff like squash commits to make them easier to review. So we like to have a really clean commit history. So you can go and read the contributing document later. I'm actually going to show you a little example of how to do this live in the Git command line. One of the things that I just did was, if I go ahead and type in Git Remote here, so I can go and see all the different remote repositories that I have. So Origin right here corresponds to my personal fork of Akka.NET. I have forks from a couple of other contributors here where I was working on some of their changes. But Upstream and Akka.NET in this case are remotes that I've set to point to the central repo here. So they point to this guy. And so one of the things that I'll do when I want to go and make some new changes is I'll type in git fetch upstream. It'll go ahead and pull the latest from upstream without merging it. And then what I'll do is, and this is all outlined in that document, I'll do git merge ff only. This means fast forward the commit history. Go and do upstream dev. This will go and merge the latest commits into my little branch, my little dev branch here. I'll go and synchronize the latest changes from the dev branch. So these are changes some other contributors wrote. These aren't anything that I did. So I can go and synchronize those changes in. And then when I want to start a new feature branch, I can go ahead and do git checkout b, my feature. And because we like to do really serious stuff in our live demos and meetings like this, I'm going to edit the README file for. I'm going to go ahead and edit the README file for this. So it looks like I don't have the folder open yet. So I'll go ahead and use GitHub for Windows. Open this up. Go ahead and edit the README. So I'm using a markdown pad here, which is really good. So I'm going to go ahead and add some white space. And you see here, when I type in git status, we see we picked up a change in the commit here. I'll go ahead and stage that. Add a commit message. Then if I wanted to make another change, like maybe say remove some white space, go ahead and commit that. Great. So if I want to go and submit this as a pull request, I'd go ahead and push this feature. So we Git Push Origin, my feature. Go ahead and push this out to my local fork. And you can see here that immediately, without even reloading the page, I got a notification here that I can do a pull request. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Go ahead and bring in this pull request here. Now, one of the things you'll notice that we don't like in the Akka.NET project is that I have two different commits here, message 1 and message 2. We ideally like to go and flatten our commit history down to just a single commit. That way it's really easy for the people who are doing code reviews to do changes. They only have to look at the Files Change tab, and it's really easy for them to see like what the sum of all your changes are. So what I'm going to show you how to do in the Git workflow real quick is do a little Git Rebase. This is what's called an interactive rebase in Git. So you do it by typing git rebase -i, and then you pass in the branch that you're rebasing on. Usually it's the dev branch. I'll type that in. This will go ahead and launch this little window here. And what we want to do is we want to merge this commit in with this one. And the way we do that is we just type the word squash right here. So this is going to basically compress the Git history into just a single commit. And oh no, there's a, oh actually there we go, looks good. No changes you've been asked to do. Yeah, I guess I gotta do git. Oh, come on now. Let's continue. There we go. This is what I wanted to see. So you can go ahead and basically change the commit message to just message 1 like this. All right, there we go. And if I go ahead and do a forced update, git push origin my feature force like this. Go ahead and show this to the left here. If I go ahead and hit enter on that, what that's going to do is you can see that I just basically shrank the commit history from 2 commits down to 1. So I was able to go and merge the 2 commits together. And this is a little GitHub, see a Git technique. That's let's see, message 1, message 2. Well, it looks like I didn't even do that quite right. Well, either way, that's enough with the Git demo for the time being. I think it was the fact that the new commit was basically just a, how do I put this? Basically, if I did something a little bit more substantial, I don't think I would have had that allow empty nonsense going on there. But that's how you do a little interactive. That's how you do like an interactive rebase. So follow the procedure that we outline in the little contributing.md doc here, and make sure, and basically just follow that procedure to make sure you squash commits. We link to a bunch of resources from GitHub and others that explain how to do this in more detail. But this is something that a lot of first-time contributors have a lot of trouble with, is the little Git workflow. As you can tell, when I was doing it just then, even I trip up and have problems with it sometimes. So it's something that's worth doing right. But ultimately, I just wanted to show you that and now since we're recording this, you can go back and re-watch the video if you ever need some help figuring out how to actually submit a pull request again in the future. I'm going to leave this pull request open. Well, actually, no, I can close it because we've got other ones I can take a look at. So let me close this PR. All right. So one of the things worth taking a look at is if I zoom in here, you can see that we have these little green check marks next to our builds. And we have a X here where we had a build failure here because I think there was a problem with the XML in the solution file in this particular one. So we use continuous integration to run the test suite every single time someone sends in a pull request. And if you click on this check mark here, you're going to take a look at this. Click on the check mark here, and then you click on it on the actual individual commit message. This will take you to view the Team City output from that test run. So if you ever have an issue with a build failure or anything else like that when you submit in a pull request, you can see an overview here of all the different tests that were ignored in this case and all the tests that passed. We had 1,152 tests pass. And then if you want to take a look at the individual build log, like let's say there was an exception that occurred inside a multi-node test and you want to understand why, you can click on the build log here. The build logs are pretty big. They're like 7 megs a piece, so they're a decent size. You can go ahead and actually view the build steps down here. And it'll show you, where a test failed, where it succeeded, etc. So that's it as far as like the mechanical plumbing stuff goes with respect to the build system and the workflow. So with that piece done, I'm going to move on to actually talking about Akka.cluster now. Does anyone have any questions about anything I showed you? Nope. Some head shakes. Cool. So you can review any of that later if I was going too fast or if I missed anything. In the short run, I'd like to actually go and cover some stuff related to Akka.cluster and what it is. Now, if you guys could unmute your microphones for this, I'm going to ask a couple of questions real briefly. So first is, who can explain for me, what a cluster is, first and foremost? Not all at once.
Generally, a set of computers or servers that can do work in parallel, and then bring the result back and combine it somehow.
Let's
So,
say,
sorry, go ahead.
work in synergy instead of parallel, I would say. Like they know about each other, what they're doing, what I am doing and what others are doing.
Mm-hmm. Any others?
Could be seen as one instance, like one server doing one set of work.
Sorry, I missed that, David. Could you repeat that?
That means you see a cluster name, which is like a set of server, but you see that as one name. That means a set of compute power that you see as one instance.
Right, so there's a concept of transparency built into a cluster, in other words, right? You don't care about the individual servers. You're firing a message at the cluster, and you don't care necessarily where it runs, right?
Yes.
Good. Good. These are all good answers. So I'm actually going to pull up a little presentation here. So let me go ahead and start this. So what a cluster does,
We cannot hear you anymore. Hello? Okay.
Hello?
It's like a problem. Aaron is gone.
Yeah.
I guess Hangouts isn't clustered. Is Aaron still logged in?